Hello, it's Pastor Quincy from Cuyahoga Falls Church of the Nazarene, here to talk to you about episode 5 of season 3 of The Chosen. The Chosen is a free TV series about the life of Jesus, just an amazing series to help the scriptures come alive. So this episode opens with a very difficult scene as we see Peter's wife, Eden, having a miscarriage. And as her mother and a doctor in the area care for her, we're finally understanding what burden she's been carrying with her throughout this season. So we get that insight. All of a sudden, we have questions. Why would Jesus allow this to happen to the wife of one of his followers, a follower herself, who does so much to serve him? Why would he allow this to happen to Peter and to his family? Then we go back to Peter, who's at his house looking at his wife, trying to figure out why she's upset, why she's mad at him, trying out what Gaius said about saying, whatever it is, I'm sorry, you were right, and failing because he doesn't know the context of the situation, what husbands haven't been there. But we feel for both of them in the pain and the suffering they're experiencing. And then we go to another home scene, Zebedee and his wife and sons discussing the changes that he's making in his life. And some beautiful scenes here as we see a father rejoicing in his children finding their true vocation following the Messiah, saying, I've been waiting my whole life for this and you guys experienced it. Now there's going to be something new in my life. I'm going to go into this olive business to help support the ministry that you're a part of. He chose you. That's what makes Zebedee excited. And man, just beautiful to see. Thaddeus and Nathaniel are carrying water back from the stream, and they run into Veronica. We've met her in the previous episode. She's the woman with the issue of blood that no doctors can heal for 12 years. But she realizes that Thaddeus and Nathaniel are connected to Jesus because she's run into Simon the Zealot's brother, who was at the pool of Bethsaida healed by Jesus. She's been waiting to meet him. And you can see the beauty in the actress's portrayal here of Veronica and her desperation, her belief in this Messiah who can do something no doctor has ever been able to do. I liked how the show shows us Judas as a good negotiator, as he negotiates the price of the olive grove and negotiates the payment for someone to help Zebedee be able to run the olive grove. And then Gaius and Peter are working together, talking to each other as they fix the broken well. We see here Peter's discomfort with being around a Gentile, which makes sense as we look at Acts chapter 10, where Peter is confronted with the Gentiles coming to faith, as we look at Galatians and Paul confronting Peter about some of his discomfort around Gentiles. We see that this idea of understanding uncleanness and that God has called all Gentiles is something that Peter did work through in the scriptures. Peter's beginning to get to the bottom of something here. Gaius references the fact he's got two sons and then says one of them's a servant boy, and there's something going on here. He asks Peter about another woman. Is this his illegitimate child as a servant boy? We eventually are going to learn that's the case, and so that's being revealed here. Peter is starting to realize that. Jairus discovers that his daughter is going to die, and so he finds Yusuf and they go to find Jesus. Judas isn't particularly helpful, but says, go talk to Peter. And then we see Jesus and some of his disciples in Peter's home. Eden's still taking care of them, and Jesus clearly recognizes that something's going on with Eden. He compliments her and notices her pain and her silence. Then he's asked about why his disciples don't fast, and explains this idea of the bridegroom and his attendance and what it's like to be there at the wedding at the time of rejoicing. That's where we are right now. The Messiah has come. You can find all this in Luke chapter 5, verses 33 through 39. But his disciples pick up on this idea of Jesus someday being gone and taken away, and they don't understand what this means. They want to ask about it, but then Jesus is interrupted. He also gives this illustration of wineskins. Brings me back a little bit to what Peter had told Jairus about what Peter tells Jairus about the Jewish people speaking in metaphors. This is a riddle, a parable. Parables might be best understood as riddles, as ways to make you think about life a little bit different. And Jesus explains how the ways of the kingdom that he's bringing will not fit into all the ways and containers of the world. And then Jairus comes in and falls at Jesus' feet. He has complete belief in Jesus. He says, I know you. And I love how the actor who plays Jesus portrays this line, do you? There's something going on here in Jairus that he recognizes. and he asked that Jesus would heal his daughter, and we see this brief flash to Eden and the pain in her eyes. Jesus recognizes his faith and goes with him. Back to Peter and Jairus. Peter references Jeremiah 2:13, which talks about this idea of trying to draw water out of broken cisterns, which we're going to see in the rest of the season Peter trying to do, trying to find hope and healing in a broken cistern that Jesus has to fill with only his presence in his life. So that's important for us to recognize. Jesus and his disciples are headed to Jairus' house. Jesus and his disciples are reminding the people that he's going to come back. And then we see Veronica again. Love the actress who plays Veronica. She does such a good job. One touch, one thread, just the edge. She's told not now. She's told she'll make him unclean. But she finally manages to reach out and touch the prayer tassels on Jesus' robe. And that one touch sets her free. And I don't know how you can't help but be moved by this scene. So well presented. I recommend that you read this scene in Mark chapter 5. Just a beautiful presentation in Mark chapter 5. And if you look closely in Mark chapter 5, you'll see that Jairus says to Jesus, "Come and heal my little daughter." Even though his daughter's 12 years old, and in their day that's practically a woman, he still calls her his little daughter because of how much he cares about her. And then in the Greek, Jesus also calls Veronica in the show, but the woman with the issue of blood, he calls her my little daughter. And the show picks up on that she is being claimed by Jesus as her own, as his own. She belongs to him, and he affirms her faith. He blesses her. He thanks her that she found him, that they found each other today. It's her faith that has brought this blessing, not some magical connection because of the prayer tassels. It's her faith that has brought about healing in her life, her receptivity to God's activity, and Jesus affirms it in her just as he did in Jairus. And of course, we see the other rabbi from Capernaum who doesn't believe in Jesus confronts Jairus, saying his daughter has died, don't bother Jesus anymore. And they hear the mourners with the flutes and the crying, and Jesus says, don't be afraid, just believe, your daughter will live. And the rabbi's upset, the mourners are upset, they laugh at Jesus, they poke fun at Jesus, they don't like what Jesus is doing. But when it's all said and done, we find Jesus at the bed of Neely, who has died, with a weeping, grieving mother, angry, not understanding, and Jesus taking her hand, looking to the heavens, praying and saying, "Little lamb, arise," or "Little daughter, arise," and she lives again. Oh, it's such a powerful scene. I've seen this episode 3 or 4 times, and it still makes me cry every time, just to imagine that pain that people are in and how Jesus brings them healing. From the woman with the issue of the blood to the parents who have lost a child, Jesus is the one who can heal all of our hurts through his very presence. And Jesus tells all that are there, don't tell anyone what happened. We don't want the commotion that's going to come with someone knowing that I brought someone back from the dead. I'm sure here they are thinking of how Elijah and Elisha were able to bring people back from the dead and thinking about those stories. But obviously it's an incredible thing that no one really can do. So they're supposed to keep that quiet. And then Jesus is confronted by the rabbi who doesn't believe in him, saying, you've got to get purified. And so in irony and sarcasm, but also in play, Jesus and the disciples in the episode playing together in the water, in the pure stream, in which we see that Veronica has cut away her menstrual rags, and possibly a reference to Isaiah 64 verse 6, and burned them and gone and been cleansed in the stream. Now Jesus and his disciples are playing chicken and splashing each other in the stream. What a beautiful scene. But then the episode does close with one more shot of Eden, who just doesn't understand why healing didn't come for her, and the pain and suffering is so clear on her face. So a beautiful job with this episode, not only reminding us of the healing and wholeness Jesus brings, but also remembering those who don't experience that in how they want to every moment. Those who have unanswered questions at the end of the day as to why Jesus didn't see me, why Jesus didn't heal me, why he healed others but doesn't respond to my prayers. And the show will continue to grapple with those questions even as they point us to the answer, which is found in the love and relationship that only Jesus can provide.